pleased to be joined today by current BCF and CFFC middleweight champion Anthony Smith, less than 2 weeks removed from the undercard win, Cowboy versus Cowboy, UFC Fight Night 83. I want to talk about Josh Neer and the impact he had on your career, and we're going to start with the first fight and kind of have you relive those moments. Before that, your biggest fight was Roger Gracie, who had beat the late Kevin Randleman, Keith Jardine, fought King Mo. You lose to Gracie, and then Strikeforce goes under. At this point, you've got 5 years of your life in professional MMA. Can you talk about what apprehensions you had or what fears you had when the first call from the FC came the original time?
The first call, I was happy to be there. I was happy that they brought me over from Strikeforce, because a lot of guys didn't get brought over. A lot of guys, just got released from the contract. So I was just happy that I was one of the guys that got moved over. I knew that I had to make a big impact because I had lost to Roger Gracie in my last fight with Strikeforce. And I think maybe Joe Silva knew that it was a little bit of there was an injury issue there, and it was what it was. And then I go in and I fight Braganetto in Brazil. It's kind of a shaky place, anyways, as far as where we were at. And I blow my own knee defending a submission from Braganetto. Like I've said before numerous times, if you actually watch the fight and you watch the actual finish, I was tapping before I even had the knee bar. I actually blew it defending the knee bar. So I was pretty down about all that. It was 2 fights in a row that had been decided due to injury. And I'm not usually one that will make excuses, so I don't ever say anything about it right then and there. But now that it's however long in the past now, that's kind of what happened.
You usually are one that pushes through fights. Is it something with you? I mean, obviously the nickname Lionheart. What makes you not give up the way other fighters would or have?
I don't think that there's anything in me that just says don't quit. I think it's just in my DNA. A lot of guys are looking for ways out. When shit gets tough and things aren't going your way, I think a lot of guys are looking for a way out. And I don't mean to, we all know that I don't give a shit what anyone thinks of me. But I mean, we all seen Joe Riggs when he fought, Ron Stallings. When Ron Stallings had just murdered his eye with a jab and then takes a kind of a bullshit up kick to the jaw and wants to say that it was because of his eye he couldn't continue. That's Joe Riggs looking for a way out. That's him being a coward. You know what I mean? And that's just not me. It doesn't. If my head is unattached in the cage, I'm gonna pick it up and tuck it under my shoulder and keep fighting. That's just how I am. And there's nothing in me that says, oh, you can't quit, you can't quit. That just quitting never enters my mind. It's we just do whatever we can. You know what I mean? If my arm gets ripped off, I'm gonna take it back and start swinging it at people. You know what I mean? That's just if there's breath in me, I'm fighting.
So at this point, you've spent a lot of your professional career, about 5 years in MMA, in and out of promotions. You went into Strikeforce, you've got carried over to the UFC where you lose, and now, we'll go back to December of 2013. You're at VFC 41, and you're facing Josh Neer. Knowing where you've been and where you're headed now, how much pressure that initial fight with Neer did you put on yourself?
I put a lot of pressure on myself on that initial first fight. It was Josh Neer was my home run. I knew that I was good enough to be there. I knew that I was good enough to be in the UFC. I was already down. I was mentally mind screwed a little bit anyways because of what had just happened. My body wasn't holding up. I was fighting injuries, and I had to get the win. I had to beat Josh Neer because if I beat him, in my mind, everything else didn't matter. The last losses didn't matter. I was back on track. Maybe him and a couple more wins, and I was back to where I needed to be. And so I pretty much hung everything that I had on that Josh Neer fight. That was my make it or break it moment. That was, if I can't beat him, then maybe we need to go a different route and look different places. That's kind of how my mindset was going into that fight.
After you lose that fight in 2013, obviously you have a good amount of time before you sign with Bellator. What was your thought process? Did you fear, whether you wanted to compete? Is this something that you wanted to keep doing? Because obviously you've probably been through a lot of heartache at this point, and reevaluating, is this what you want to do with your life?
Yeah, it was, and again, in the Josh Neer fight, in the first minute of the first round, I shattered my right hand, so I pretty much fought him the whole time one-handed. So I was so messed up in the head, man. It was the darkest place I've ever been in my whole life. I knew that I had the capability to build myself back up and fight my way back and fucking take that hard road again, you know. And I knew I could do it, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to at that point. You know, I considered just kind of different routes, whether I wanted to, you know, focus on just competition jiu-jitsu or maybe just kickbox. You know, I didn't know. You know, I wasn't sure. But it, you know, kind of looking back at it now, fortunately, I had to have a couple surgeries on my hand to fix it. So that gave me time to where I didn't have to be in the gym, and I didn't have to be anywhere. You know, I was injured, so I was kind of just, you know, fortunately, I think it gave me time to work through those demons in my head during that off time.
Right. So you go through this dark place. You know, you get some wins in Bellator, you get the cage for your middleweight belt, and then in January, more than 2 years after this loss to Neer, you're almost in different places because you're on a 6-weight win streak. You get the call to fight him again at the UFC for the middleweight belt. Did you feel like you were in a lot better place then? Did you feel like this was going to be a better opportunity than what you had before? Did you feel like this one was going to mean more to you?
You know, at the time, Josh wasn't my original opponent, you know. And when I found out that I lost my opponent to the UFC, and you know, I was like, you know, I was pretty disappointed because first of all, I thought I was getting close, and I thought I would be one of the next ones in. Then, you know, and then I'm like, well, now I got to train for a totally different dude for the next however long. And then they called and they said it's Josh Neer, and I was, you know, it almost made everything okay. You know, like I was pretty pissed off that I didn't get the call, and you know, and Elvis did. And then when they said it was Neer, I was happy. I was like, well, here we go. You know what I mean? Like this is my shining moment where this is a literal before and after of my streak. You know, once I lost to Josh, I had to instead of just trying to get back on that horse, I had to figure out if I wanted to be on the horse. You know, I had to figure out if this is even what I wanted to do anymore. And you know, I switched and that's when I switched gyms. And once I did that, then everything just started pulling together. You know, everything came together, and my personal life was together. My professional life, my job, my training, everything just came together. And I was beating everyone, you know. And then when I faced Josh the second time, it wasn't like the first time I was hoping I could beat Josh. I was hoping I could get through him. I was hoping I could do this. I was hoping I could do that. The second time, I had already won before the fight had even started. The fight was a technicality. I knew that no matter how much Josh said that he thought it was going to be the same fight the second time, I know he doesn't think that, and he didn't think that going in. You could see it in his eyes. So that, you know, it was a bittersweet thing. Truthfully, I look back on the fight now, and I feel for Josh. You know, I feel bad for him. I feel almost a little bit guilty, you know, about how it all ended and how it went. But at the same time, that's what I think it was going to take to get me in the UFC. I think that they needed to see that before and after. Here's how he was when he left, and here's how he is now, you know.
So Josh came out and tried to push that pace with you. You know, you got some height there to overcome. He kind of pushed you in a corner and seemingly just wanted to keep it down on the ground with you. And essentially you just have a spat of about 30 seconds where you stood it back up and you got him into the corner and you would just not relent on him. I mean, you were giving him some pretty hard elbows. And we don't see a lot of standing TKOs in MMA. Mm-hmm. And it looked like he was just kind of wanting that window, or you were almost looking for that window for him to be bailed out by the ref. Were you fighting right there in knowing that, you know, this was, you know, as you talked about, a little bit of redemption or some vengeance in terms of your career to him? Was there any apprehension from you initially when he didn't touch gloves with you at all either?
No, not at all. I knew he was going to push the pace like that because that's his only way to win. You know, that's the only way that Josh Neer could beat me was to pressure me and smother me to where I can't touch him. And that's the only way he could win that fight. And I knew that, you know what I mean? And I said the day before the fight in our UFC Fight Pass interview, I used the quote. I said, Josh Neer is too tough for his own good. And you've seen it with the standing TKO. Even with I'm hitting him with the elbows, and his eyes are rolling in the back of his head, and he will not go down. He has an intangible set of skills that you can't teach, that you can't learn. It's just who he is as a person. He's too tough. He's too tough for his own safety, and and he showed it. He showed his own toughness and his own grit and his own heart, because he just won't go down. And I knew that when I was hitting him with the elbows. I knew that if I didn't stop, whether his eyes are rolling in the back of his head or not, he's gonna. If he clears up, he's right back in the fight. And that was my mindset going into it, is that I have to destroy him, because he's not going to quit.
After the fight, you wore a Call Me Dana hat. It was just over a month later that you do get the call to replace Trevor Smith at UFC Fight Night 83. But after that fight, you almost humbled yourself and said that you didn't show Dana what you could do in the UFC. So obviously, you felt like then this was your career coming full circle to a point.
I felt like it. After the fight, I wanted to. I don't know, and I don't even know if Dana watched it. I don't know if he's seen it, but I wanted to reintroduce myself, kind of, and say, listen, like I'm going to be a world champion, and I'm going to be here for a long time. So, that was kind of when I said, my name's Anthony Smith, and I'd like a second chance. That was me pleading, like I'm here and I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to keep doing this to people until you call. So whether you call or not, I'm going to keep doing this. So that was kind of me coming full circle and saying I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to be back. I'm ready to show you guys that I belong here. And it's not all just talk.
I don't know if we could sum up, or if you could in 10 or 15 minutes of an interview, what your career ups and downs were like that. But, those are stories that get turned into movies, to go through what you did. While you're going through this, you're seeing, the Ultimate Fighter put people on the grid that don't have an established resume like you do. You're watching Bellator, a company that you used to work with, headline fights with people like Ken Shamrock, Kimbo Slice. When you sit back and look at your work ethic and what you're trying to do, and you see these guys get a card or get a push, how does that make you feel?
It's frustrating, man. It's so frustrating, because I've dedicated almost 10 years of my life, to trying to be the best I can be, and all I've ever asked for is an opportunity. I've never asked for a hand me out. I've never asked for something that I didn't deserve. I just need. All I've ever asked for is the stage. Give me the opportunity, and what I do with it is on me. And I've had some opportunities, but they weren't ever like true opportunities, like nothing's ever come easy for me, you know what I mean? And then you see guys like Dada 5000, I can't even talk too much shit about Kimbo. I will a little bit, but at least Kimbo has attempted to try to be a fighter. He's attempted. He went through the Ultimate Fighter. He trained like a professional for a while. He did some professional boxing matches. Like, he attempted at doing it the right way. He tried. I think he failed. I think he did really shitty. I think he did a terrible job at it. I think he's an awful athlete. I think he's a terrible MMA fighter. I don't think he's that great of a boxer. But Dada 5000 headlining a Bellator card is a slap in the face to every fighter that's ever worked hard to get to where they're at. Like, you got guys like, just off the top of my head, the Caveman. Caveman is a friend of mine. You got Dave Rickles is a killer, super tough dude, man. The dude has put so much work in. I trained with Caveman before either one of us had ever been in the big show, and dude, he just grinded his ass off to get to where he's at now. And then you got guys like Dada 5000 headlining cards, like, they're making buku bucks. It's so bullshit. And now you see the result of that. Dada almost died, and not because Kimbo almost killed him, because he's so fat and out of shape. And that's how serious Dada 5000 took it. Like, Dada almost died from exhaustion because he doesn't deserve to be there. You know what I mean? Like, that's the same result if he'd have taken a 15-minute sprint. You know what I mean? Like, he'd have died sprinting. Because he's like that. Like, those are the people that are getting these opportunities over guys. I'm not saying that I deserve main event spots or whatever, because I haven't beaten the people to get there. But if I don't deserve it, then Dada 5000 definitely deserves it. And the shit's so frustrating, man. The Ultimate Fighter, you know, it is what it is. It's you know, it is what it is. There's guys on there that come through there that really are deserving of the opportunities that they get, and there's also guys that come through there that don't. So I mean, again, that it is what it is. But I think the guys like Ken Shamrock had, you know, so what? He's a fucking legend. He needs to stay a fucking legend and stop fighting, because he makes himself and the sport look fucking stupid.
Does that change?
But I could ramble about that forever, because that's how bad it pisses me off. You know.
Well, I think there's not many fighters that have went from Bellator that have worked their way back to the UFC, and now my question to you would be, based on all this, do you look at Bellator as, you know, assuming, you know, you get to a point where you will step back down? Is this to take Bellator off the map to you? Do you disrespect? Do you not respect what they've done to the sport to a point where, even though you're a former fighter in their promotion, you don't want to deal with them anymore?
I just don't. I just don't want to be involved in that kind of shit. You know, I don't like, that's a freak show. You know what I mean? That's such a freak show. You know, there's legitimate dudes in there that are getting wrapped up in that freak show. Like King Mo. King Mo is a tough dude. King Mo is good. And then you see him getting wrapped up in these sideshow freaks shit. You know, like even who's the light heavyweight? Real good dude.
I mean, I think they have a lot of decent fighters. I mean, I like Chandler. I like Phil Davis. You know.
Phil Davis. There we go. So Phil Davis, he was a monster. Maybe to the fair weather fan, he's not the most exciting fighter in the world, but I love watching the dude fight. I think he's extremely talented, and I just the way he's able to use his body type to do the things that he does is amazing. But then you get someone so legitimate wrapped up in this bullshit. It just takes away from his own legitimacy. You know, like you watch him fight and you watch the shows that he's on, and you're just like, man, what are you doing, Phil? Like, this isn't you. Like, you should be fighting in the UFC where your skill set and the respect that you carry that you get from MMA fans should be legitimate respect, you know. And that's, you know, Scott Coker's a good dude, man. He's my old boss from Strikeforce. He's a good dude, and he knows how to make money, and that's what it comes down to. This is a money thing, because as much shit as I talked about the Kimbo and Dada fight, and as much crap as I gave the Shamrock and Gracie fight, I still tuned in and watched it. And that's what pisses me off, because even me, as big as a freak show that I thought it was, and as much shit as I talked about it, I still watched it. So, you know, I'm almost felt guilty doing it. I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, they're doing this because even people who know that and know the game and know how stupid it is, still watch it. So, I mean, they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's just, I just don't think it's right.
It seems like, from a fan's perspective, that they're almost billing the fight between the two people as opposed to the two athletes, where you look at UFC, right, and it turns so much less about what the character this person is. It's interesting you mentioned Dave Rickles, because to me, you know, here's a guy that's really bought into, let me create a character, let me create a brand to establish myself in this organization, and then use that. It almost, in my opinion, merges, you know, your pro wrestling aspects with your MMA aspects. And to me, again, not from a fighting standpoint, but from as a fan, I always wanted to see those worlds completely separate. I don't want to see a character in the MMA world. I want to see a fighter. I want to see an athlete. There's no value for me in building someone up as a bad guy or a good guy. You know, if that's how you live your life, and that's, you know, the image you create for yourself, then that's fine. But, you know, there shouldn't be, you know, bad versus evil storylines in amongst MMA. There's just really no place for it. You fight who's in your weight class, you fight who you're intended to fight up a tiered ranking system, and that should create all the drama that there is. Have you ever went to Dave?
And sometimes you'll have guys who legitimately don't like each other. Sometimes you'll run into guys that just don't get along. They've had a previous problem, or they're just personalities clash, and that's great. That's real life problems. That's real world shit, which is great. I love it. You know, like Conor McGregor, the shit that he says about people in the hype and the trash talking, like, he doesn't really trash talk too much. He just doesn't like those guys. You know what I mean? Like, he legitimately meant everything he said about Jose Aldo. You know what I mean? And then afterwards, he's humble and he moves on with his life and he moves on. You know what I mean? And people that fight Conor don't like Conor. Like, it's not that they're hyping it up and they're trying to create some issue that isn't there. They just legitimately don't like him, which is great. That's real world problems. You know, a perfect example would be the me and Derek Brunson thing. If we fought, I don't know how the build-up would be. I don't know what it would be like, but I real world don't like it. It isn't anything that's made up. It isn't anything that's fabricated. It's not us hyping it. Like, we just don't like each other. And I think that's great. Fans love that shit. But then you got, like, I don't know what Dada's problem with Kimbo is. You're creating shit that doesn't exist, you know, and that's when you start getting into the pro wrestling world.
So I'm going to close this out with the same question I ask every person we have on. If it takes a year for me to sit back down with you and talk to you, where is Anthony Smith going to be a year from now?
A year from now, I'll be 4-0 in the UFC. And I'll be knocking on top contender fights. You know what I mean? I don't know who the champion's going to be then. You know what I mean? You know, I would assume that it would probably still be Rockhold, but, you know, I'm going to be I'm going to be in the top 10. I'm going to be scrambling for fights that are going to get me to the title. 185 is kind of wide open outside of the top 10. You know, there's some guys. You know, I don't think that I run into too many problems. You know, outside of the top 7 or 8 guys. You know, there's Whitaker's up there. He's a pretty tough dude. You know, but there's dudes like Brunson and Uriah Hall and them dudes are just stepping stones, you know. And by that time, and I'm getting better every single fight, you know. So, I mean, that's where I see myself. I see myself with 4 wins, 5 wins in the UFC by this time next year, and and trying to get to that title shot, you know.